Let's talk about the astrology of these two presidential candidates to see how this election is going to play out. Since I got this question on my last election video, let's start with Kamala. So Kamala Harris was born on October 20th with the sun in Libra and the moon in Aries. But the most notable thing about her chart right now is that she is a Gemini rising at 27 degrees Gemini with the North Node conjunct the ascendant. Why is this so notable, you say? Well, that's because Jupiter moved into Gemini on May 25th of this year, and since then has been transiting her first house of self, and Jupiter is only in Gemini from May of 2024 until June of 2025, which Jupiter is the planet of abundance and opportunities, and for it to be transiting her first house of self is really propelling her out into the world. Because she has the North Node on her ascendant, she is extremely sensitive to nodal transits. And it also makes her super inclined to go out into the world and create sustainable change and has a hunger for it and a desire to push things forward, which is all of the signatures of the North Node. Over the last 18 months, she's been going through the eclipse series with the North Node in Aries transiting over her 11th house where her Aries moon is. This is extremely significant because the 11th house is the people who directly receive benefit from your career and legacy. It's also your audience. And right now, the entire world is her audience. And with the North Node transiting her 11th house, the house of the audience, with the North Node, it really tries to incite change, to move things forward. And a lot of her platform has been trying to communicate to audiences that we are all one country and that she will be the president for all, not different groups who only support her. Which feels like a good time to talk about Donald Trump. So Donald Trump was born on the 14th of June with the sun in Gemini at 22 degrees, conjunct the North Node at 20 degrees, and Uranus at 17 degrees. At the same time, he was born with the moon in Sagittarius conjunct the South Node and is a Leo rising. Is any of this surprising? So this big bad boy with the sun, North Node, and Uranus is really what makes Donald Trump so unpredictable, but also super magnetizing to watch because it is like watching a reality show. This configuration is also in his 11th house of the audience, which is why so many people actually have quite a following to him that is pretty surprising with Uranus. So Donald Trump was born with Leo rising at 29 degrees with Mars on the ascendant at 26 degrees Leo. Now Mars is the planet of literal conflict and controversy, so for it to be on his ascendant and in his first house of self, this really creates for quite a controversial person, as we have known for quite a while. One of the most controversial things about Donald Trump as president is how disparaging he is to women and how that actually has impacted women's lives, including abortion bans and restriction on reproductive rights. And of course, we can see it in his natal chart. We can see it over here with this bad boy with a Saturn-Venus conjunction in Cancer. So Saturn is literally the planet that puts on rules and regulations and represents government, while Venus literally represents women and their rights. But don't worry, there's more. Over here with this moon south node conjunction in the 5th house of childbearing, with the moon actually representing the uterus and the ability to nourish life, or also the ability to have choice over one's body. This is a great example about how natal astrology actually shows up in how someone is as president with a lot of power and influence. With this Saturn-Venus conjunction in the 12th house where we banish people, literally tucking away and marginalizing women. And then this South Node moon conjunction in the 5th house is literally stripping women of rights, which is one of the main topics that we are voting on in this election. So what these two candidates really have in common in their astrological charts is this heavy emphasis on Gemini, especially with Jupiter's current transit in Gemini. So Gemini is the sign that is ruled by Mercury, and its urgency is to communicate information. And the unfortunate part is that Gemini is a dual sign. So there is a lot of back and forth. There is a lot of mixed information, which we have really seen in this election, seeing two different candidates painting two totally different realities, which can be very disorienting. Now, to reemphasize their Gemini placements, Donald Trump has this Sun, North Node, and Uranus conjunction. With the Sun, it is really self-interest led, and with Uranus, there is a very strong volatile and unpredictable nature about Uranus, whereas the North Node and Ascendant is much less charged. It's much more North Node focused. It's much more about progression and moving forward. They also share a Mars and Leo, almost exact, within 5 degrees of each other. And right now, Mars is making its return into Leo, where it will eventually have a retrograde later this year into early next year. And as we are all aware, we are very worried about the fallout of this election, of this Mars on Mars action, of what conflict will come no matter who wins. And unfortunately, this Mars retrograde is just going to emphasize that we are going to be dealing with the ramifications of this election for quite a few months into February of 2025. So hold tight. If I were to go purely off of astrology to see who is going to win this presidential race, I really would go with Kamala Harris. This Jupiter and Gemini action, it is impacting both of them and it is influential to both of them, but it is hitting her ascendant. It's hitting his sun, but the ascendant is the most influential point in anyone's chart. So I would say with this Jupiterian good luck, it is most directly going to impact Kamala Harris and the rest of the country. So as you can see, we can see a lot from the natal chart, and what we've learned over the last 10 years is that the president actually does have power and it actually does impact people's day-to-day lives. So I hope you go out and you vote and you make a decision that's not only good for your body, but for other bodies too.